preacher, this is so old-fashioned. Yeah, and you know why our marriages are falling to pieces and people are falling to adultery and going crazy and having eyes full of adultery? You know why? Because we somewhere along the way kept watering it down, watering it down. We don't have any personal values, and once you start losing your personal values, I don't need to pray, I don't have to go to church, it ain't no big deal. Then you start losing your traditional values, things that have been done for years and years and years and years in your family, and suddenly you quit, and then before you know it, Satan's after your core values, like marriage, like home, like family, like morality. See, listen now, the personal values and the traditional values are safeguards that protect your core values. And so you need to stand strong on those values, because nobody just falls into sin. Whoops, I fell into adultery. I went down to get a loaf of bread and I fell into adultery. I don't know what happened. It doesn't happen that way. No, there's a breakdown of personal values. Then there's a breakdown of traditional values. Then it gets to the core. A collapse of the core. I was raised, and I mentioned, you know, we were taught everything was wrong. I never went to a movie picture. I never went to the movies till I was 25 years old. I never saw a movie, nothing. Not even the 10 Commandments. I couldn't go see that. We didn't believe in going to the movies. I go to the movies now. But, you know, I always wanted to go to the county fair. They preached against everything. They preached against everything but motherhood and clean air and apple pie. Everything else was a sin. All sports. It was crazy. That was traditional stuff that needed to go away. But you know, I thank God for the way I was raised, because it put in me some core values that matter today. I'm concerned about this generation, that they know nothing of discipline and sacrifice and core values. You know, I'm from the Gutenberg generation. The Gutenberg was the one who invented the printing press. But most of you are from the Google generation. Everything I've learned from print, from the books. Everything this generation is learning is from computers and from technology. And so it can be good. We have to change with the times, but there are some things that should never change. In Acts chapter 15 and verse 19, it said, "Write unto them that they abstain from pollution of idols, from fornication, and from things strangled with blood." And then down in the 28th verse, I believe it is, it says, we don't want to burden you more than necessary. These are necessary things. Now, wait a minute. Now, this is New Testament, and Paul in the New Testament church said there are 3 things that you should abstain from. Now, I want you to see the difference between traditional and core values right here. He said, number 1, you need to abstain from things offered to idols. See, back then, they would offer animals to idols that they worship and then sell it at the produce store. So when you went to the butcher store, you had to ask the butcher, was this meat offered to an idol? Now, we don't have to do that anymore, so that doesn't apply to us, does it? I never go to the butcher and say, "Did you offer it to an idol?" And then he said, was it strangled and was it bloody? In other words, they weren't allowed to eat things that were bloody, medium rare. Some of you eat that. I was in a restaurant the other day and somebody got a steak that was so rare. I said to the person I was with, if they would get it to the vet, I believe that they could keep it alive. Look at that thing. There's blood everywhere. Rare, nasty. But that's whatever floats your boat. That is not an issue to us anymore. But notice fornication, which is sexual immorality. Sex before marriage. That's a core value. That's something that you don't mess with. So I'm trying to get you to understand that the Bible talks about in Psalm 16 and verse 6, "The lines have fallen unto me in pleasant places. Listen, and I have a goodly heritage." One of the translations says, "I live within the boundaries because I respect my heritage." That's all that I think parents our children need to do for their parents is respect your heritage. Some things you ought to do, you ought not to do, even though your friends say they can do it. You shouldn't do it because you're doing that out of respect to your heritage. For example, let's say that there are 3 houses in the same neighborhood side by side and they all got teenagers. And house number 1, the dad says the curfew is 10 o'clock, be home at 10 o'clock. House number 2, the curfew is 11 o'clock, kids. You better be home by 11 o'clock. House number 3, the curfew is 12 o'clock and you better be home by 12 o'clock. It's not right for the kids in the house at 10 to compare to the other houses. The issue is, do you live in that house? Do they feed you? Do they put clothes on you? Because whatever house you live in is the one you are to respect the heritage of. And so that's why I say to my kids, we have a heritage of no alcohol. I don't know what they'll do when they get out from my house. I pray to God they'll hold on to their heritage.